Bubblegum Simulator Infinity was supposed to be the next big thing on Roblox. When it launched in April 2025, it absolutely exploded, pulling in hundreds of thousands of players, making Rumble Studios one of the hottest dev teams on the platform again, and for a moment, it really looked like nothing could stop it. But fast forward just a few months, and the game has already lost more than 95% of its player base, and it's starting to look like Bubblegum Simulator Infinity might be finished before it even had a chance to shine. So, in today's video, I'm going to break down exactly how this happened, why this game rose so high, why it's collapsing so fast, and what it tells us about the future of Roblox. Now, after looking into everything that led to Bubblegum Simulator Infinity's downfall, I've realized there are three major problems, things that developers did or things that happened around the game that ultimately caused it to fail, and I'll be discussing those in just a moment. But before we jump into it, honestly speaking, I spent hours researching and editing to put all this together. So if you enjoy videos like this, please drop a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Now, to understand BGSI's story, that is Bubblegum Simulator Infinity, we've got to go back to the peak of simulator games on Roblox. From 2018 to 2020, simulators were everywhere. Mining Simulator, Bee Swarm Simulator, Pet Simulator. They were the top games every single day. And one of the standouts from that era was the original Bubblegum Simulator. Back in 2018, Rumble Studios released the original Bubblegum Simulator, and it was simple but insanely addictive. In this game, players had to blow bubbles, unlock new islands, hatch rare pets, and try to climb the leaderboards. It hooked millions of people, and for years it was one of the most recognizable games on Roblox. So, when Rumble announced a modern sequel called Bubblegum Simulator Infinity, people went crazy. And when BGSI finally launched on April 11th, 2025, it instantly blew up. At its peak, the game reached over 350,000 concurrent players, putting it in the same league as Brookhaven and Blox Fruits. Players were appreciating how polished the game felt, with frequent updates, special events such as the Easter launch, and a progression system that was noticeably smoother than the original. And here is what really made BGSI stand out. It wasn't nearly as pay to win as many of its competitors. At a time when games like Pet Simulator were selling more than a dozen different game passes and exclusive eggs that cost thousands of Robux, Bubblegum Simulator Infinity felt like a rare breath of fresh air. Even YouTubers like LCLC joked about begging the devs to add more monetization because there just weren't enough things to spend money on. But that early success didn't last long, because underneath the hype, the first major problem was already starting to show. Soon after, things began to unravel. Now, if you played Bubblegum Sim Infinity in its first few weeks, you probably noticed something strange. Lobbies that looked full but felt empty, and the reason was that the game was being overrun by bots and alternate accounts. But with the introduction of the trading plaza, pets and items suddenly gained real value. And just like in Pet Simulator, players began using bots to farm rare pets and sell them off-platform on places like eBay and TikTok shops. At one point, community estimates suggested that nearly 60% of BGSI's players were bots. So, when Roblox launched ban waves in the summer, the game's concurrent player count collapsed almost overnight. What had once looked like 300,000 active players was closer to 120,000 to 150,000 in reality. And after those bans, BGSI's numbers never recovered. But bots weren't the only problem. BGSI also fell into what I call the update paradox. At first, BGSI delivered constant weekly updates, Easter events, bubble festivals, new pets and seeds, which kept players excited. But after a while, those updates started to feel repetitive. Each one seemed to follow the same pattern. And that's the paradox of simulator games. If you update too slowly, people get bored. But if you update too often with the same kind of content, people burn out. But there were still games, such as Piggy, that managed to avoid this problem because every update felt like a completely new experience. Bubblegum Simulator Infinity, on the other hand, fell into the same trap as most simulators. Instead of offering something new, it turned into the same endless cycle of grinding that players had already seen before, with very little real innovation to keep them interested. And as a result, Bubblegum Sim Infinity was already starting to lose momentum. The updates couldn't hold player interest anymore, and soon the game faced its biggest challenge yet, the competition. For those who may not know, 2025 has been Roblox's craziest year so far. We've seen new games break records we didn't even think were possible. Grow a Garden alone reached 21.6 million concurrent players, officially making it the most played video game in history, surpassing even Fortnite and PUBG. At the same time, games like Steal a Brainrot and 99 Nights in the Forest have each been drawing in millions of players every single day. Compared to numbers like that, BGSI's 350,000 peak suddenly looked small, and players did what players always do. to. They migrated to the next shiny thing. Overnight, BGSI wasn't the hottest new game anymore. It was just another simulator fighting to stay relevant. Now here's the thing. This isn't even new for Rumble Studios. If you look at their history, this is exactly what happens to all of their games. Mining Simulator, Pet Catchers, the original Bubblegum Simulator, all of them had massive launches, reached their peak, and then slowly died out. And it's not necessarily because these are bad games, it's more about how Roblox itself works. The platform moves so quickly that even the biggest hits are lucky to stay on top for more than a year, unless you're Brookhaven or Blox Fruits. And there are many things that the downfall of BGSI can tell us about Roblox. BGSI's downfall shows just how dangerous trading economies are. Once pets and items have real-world value, bots will flood the game and black markets will pop up. Roblox has been fighting this for years, even suing third-party sites like player auctions. But it hasn't stopped the problem. At the same time, the game proves that simulators can't survive on grind alone. Without real innovation, people burn out fast. And it's a warning for every new hit game on Roblox. Right now, Grow a Garden looks unstoppable. But the truth is, in a few months, it could face the exact same fate as Bubblegum Simulator Infinity. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.